You know who Larry Bird is?
No.
Okay, you're fired. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example of how effed up this whole system is. You probably won't know this, Billy, because you don't watch, you're not into sports, but there was an email sent by Brett Favre. Brett Favre was a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. The last couple of years of his career was with the Minnesota Vikings. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. You probably have heard his name before. So if you know who he is, he's a big boy in sports, right?
He's well known.
He's well known. By the way, as an aside, won't interest you, but it might interest some listeners. I think that all of the Hall of Fames, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. All of the Hall of Fames for the different sports, particularly baseball, football, and basketball, are there's too many. It's too easy. Like the rest of society, like everything else, it's amazing how these things infiltrate and get into and infect every part of society. So the Hall of Fame from my perspective, has a minimum that should be attained by someone who is being enshrined in this Hall of Fame. And I've always said, and so some of my buddies will ask me, how do we define that? I said, it's simple. And I'm going to add your name to it now. But I used to say, if my wife has heard of the person, that's number one for whether or not you can even begin to think about should they be let in. A general interest in sports, the Super Bowl's on, or the World Series is going on, or I mean, it's in the background, and you look up, and it's not like, oh, I hate sports, but at the same time, I don't watch sports, and a passing kind of like anything else. What's the weather today? And the Dodgers won. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, and you go on about your life, you don't think too much about it. If you've heard of Brett Favre, okay, we should then go, okay, check that box towards the enshrinement, because he has passed kind of the Rubicon, the tip, the edge in society that goes beyond sports to then be a part of the social kind of pop culture, or the culture, if you will, not necessarily the pop culture.
But I think that's heavily reliant on the media's coverage of such persons, which I would not want to give that power to the media or the media's coverage.
100%. No, you're right about that. But if you go through, I'll just throw some at you. We'll test the theory. Do you know who Wayne Gretzky is?
No.
Okay, so Wayne Gretzky is the greatest hockey player ever. But I didn't include hockey.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's hockey. You've heard of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yes.
Magic Johnson.
Yes.
Michael Jordan.
Yes.
Charles Barkley.
Yes.
Shaq.
Yep.
Right? Okay. All Hall of Famers. Now, if we pulled up the Hall of Fame, the NBA Hall of Fame, the class in the last couple of years, you wouldn't. Chances are you won't know a single name on there. Right? So, you've heard of LeBron James.
Yeah.
Okay, so LeBron James would be a perfect example of who he is. Stephen Curry, the three-point shooter, you've heard of him. Okay, Hall of Famer, 100%. Well, there's going to be players that have gotten into the Hall of Fame in the last few years that you've never heard of, and that's my point, is they've made it easier. That level that is the All-Star level, or the Hall of Fame level, eclipses the all-star level. I mean, it's that one in a generation, and they're just pouring people in because society now says, for whatever reason, and they feel like they have to, that they got to let people in.
More people.
Yeah, instead of making it harder, they make it easier, which I think is not correct. So that would be my starting point, is they should call you.
Have you heard of this guy?
And say, have you heard who that? Doesn't matter. You don't have to know that he played basketball or baseball, right?
Does this name sound familiar?
You don't have to know that. The question is, have you heard of him? It doesn't preclude somebody from getting into the Hall of Fame, but I think that it should be included that they have kind of, like I said, they've kind of gone over the top of the hill, and they're down on the other side of it culturally, to where they are. Like Charles Barkley is a fantastic example. You know who he is, and you weren't even alive when he played, damn near.
Yeah.
Right? But you know who he is. So that's a guy that has, who Shaq is, who played when you were a kid. So that's a guy who's...
And it helps that he's been in a ton of movies. And
well, that's my point.
Yeah.
Right? If he wasn't an all-star, if he wasn't a Hall of Fame type guy, chances are he's not doing that. You know who Magic Johnson is, right?
Yep.
You know who these guys are. You know who Larry Bird is?
No.
Okay, you're fired. Now, I'm glad that I said minutes before that it's not necessarily the case. It just is one of the boxes that gets checks, right? That he should have. Larry Bird is probably the greatest basketball player ever. Yeah. So, I mean, better than Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And that's an argument that can be made. I'm not saying that, but Larry Bird played for the Boston Celtics and was as good a basketball player as ever walked on the planet. Guy was a freak.